911, what is the location of your emergency?
4748 France Court.
Is this a police or medical?
My boyfriend is dead.
The heart-wrenching Suitcase mystery, a deadly game gone wrong. In February 2020, a shocking incident unfolded in Winter Park, Florida. Sarah Boone, a 42-year-old woman, was arrested for allegedly causing the death of her boyfriend, George Torres Jr., by trapping him inside a suitcase, leading to his suffocation. This case drew significant attention and debate in the local community. During the investigation, police discovered two crucial videos on Sarah's phone, showing George struggling for air inside the suitcase while Sarah ignored his pleas, even mocking him. What hidden story lies behind this seemingly ordinary couple? How did a game turn into a deadly tragedy? Night had fallen over Winter Park, Florida, and all was quiet. Suddenly, the piercing sound of sirens broke the calm. Police and paramedics rushed to an ordinary home. The front door was wide open, and a woman sat collapsed on the floor, tears streaming down her face, mumbling, "I didn't mean it. It was just a game." Next to her, paramedics desperately tried to resuscitate a man, but it was too late. The home, once filled with laughter, was now shrouded in the shadow of an unexpected death. How could such a tragedy happen? How did an innocent game end with such irreversible consequences? Sarah, aged 42, was a resident of Winter Park, Florida. She was an art enthusiast, previously employed at a local art gallery. Her cheerful demeanor and golden curls earned her the nickname Sunshine Girl among her friends. But her life hadn't always been smooth sailing. George, also 42, was Sarah's boyfriend, a tall, gentle man carrying many emotional scars. He had been through a failed marriage and was raising two daughters from his previous wife. George worked at a construction company, burdened by increasing pressures. The two met years earlier at a friend's gathering. The music was lively and the atmosphere was buzzing. Sarah was chatting about the latest art exhibit, while George quietly listened from the sidelines. Their eyes met amid the noise, and everything seemed to fall silent. "Hi, I'm Sarah," she said with a smile, extending her hand. "Oh, hello. I'm George," he responded, feeling warmth from her handshake. From that day, their lives intertwined. Their shared interests brought them closer quickly. They spent weekend afternoons visiting art exhibitions or enjoying cooking together at home. Life felt full of hope and happiness. However, the pressures of life soon began to surface. George's workload became overwhelming as the company struggled, forcing him to take on more responsibilities. Meanwhile, Sarah faced career stagnation. Her gallery job was unstable, and her income limited. The financial stress strained their relationship. "George, you're working late again? We haven't had dinner together in ages," Sarah said, with a hint of frustration. "I know, but the company is struggling, and I have to work hard," George replied helplessly. "But we need time to nurture our relationship," Sarah sighed. "I get that, but now isn't the time for this discussion," George responded, showing signs of impatience. The seeds of conflict had been quietly sown. In an effort to relieve stress, George began drinking heavily. Late at night, he sat alone in the living room, drowning his thoughts in hard liquor. Sarah grew increasingly concerned. "George, you can't keep using alcohol to numb yourself," she tried to reason with him. "It's none of your business. I need to relax," George retorted coldly. "I'm just trying to help." Sarah's eyes filled with disappointment. Alcohol only made George's moods more unpredictable, leading to growing discontent with life. During one argument, George exploded over trivial matters, smashing a glass into pieces. "Look at you. Is this the George I fell in love with?" Sarah asked in shock. "Shut up. You don't understand anything." George's eyes burned with rage. He then lost control and pushed Sarah, causing her to fall and injure her arm. She was left in disbelief and sadness. You really hit me?" she asked, shocked. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." George admitted, realizing his mistake. After this incident, Sarah started questioning if the relationship was worth continuing, but George's apologies and remorse led her to forgive him once again. "I'll change, I promise. Please give me another chance," George begged. "This is the last time. If it happens again, I won't forgive you," Sarah said firmly. But things didn't improve. George's violent tendencies escalated, and Sarah suffered repeated harm. She reported him to the police, leading to his arrest. But each time, George's contrition softened Sarah's heart, and she forgave him again and again. Sarah was torn and conflicted. She loved George, cherishing memories of their happier times, but the real pain left her disillusioned. Can I really trust him again? She wondered, tears slipping down her cheeks as she sat alone on her bed at night. She tried to channel her pain into painting, but the colours on her canvas seemed dull and lifeless. George, too, was tormented. He knew his behaviour was hurting the one he loved most, yet he couldn't control his emotions. "What's wrong with me?" he asked his reflection in the mirror, drunk and lost. Both were trapped in a whirlwind of emotions, unable to find a way out. On a calm weekend night, Sarah decided to make one last attempt to save their relationship. She prepared a special dinner, lit candles, and played their favourite music. "George, let's have a real talk tonight," she said softly. George, moved by the dinner and candlelight, responded with a small smile. "Yeah, it's been a while," he admitted. Dinner was warm and romantic, filled with memories of sweeter times. Laughter once again filled their home. "Remember the first art exhibit we visited together?" Sarah asked, smiling. "Of course. That's when I first started appreciating art," George replied. After dinner, Sarah suggested they play a game to unwind. "Let's play hide and seek, like kids," she suggested. "Wow, after all these years, you're still such a kid," George laughed, but agreed. The game began. Like children, they chased and hid around the house, filling it with laughter. When it was George's turn to hide, he searched for the perfect spot and noticed a large suitcase in the corner. "She'll never find me here," he thought, quickly crawling inside. Hearing his movement, Sarah approached and found his hiding place. "Gotcha," she said with a laugh. "Okay, you win," George replied, poking his head out of the suitcase, smiling. They played a few more rounds, enjoying the moment. However, as time passed, the effects of the wine began to cloud their judgment. "One more time. This time you won't find me," George said, once again getting into the suitcase. Sarah approached, playfully zipping it up this time. "Now you really can't get out," she teased. "All right, you win. Let me out now," George said, still laughing inside the suitcase. "Wait a bit longer. I want to see how long you can last," Sarah joked. "What? Sarah, stop messing around. Let me out." George's tone shifted to one of unease. As minutes passed, George's voice grew anxious. "Sarah, I can't breathe. Let me out." "This is how you always make me feel," Sarah said, her voice tinged with bitterness. "Please, I really can't breathe." George's voice turned desperate. But Sarah's lingering resentment and the alcohol clouded her judgment, making her ignore George's pleas. "You always do this. Now it's your turn to feel it," she muttered. "Sarah, please." George's struggles inside the suitcase weakened, his voice fading. Feeling dizzy and sleepy, Sarah stood up. "I'm going upstairs to rest. Think about what you've done," she said before going upstairs and soon falling asleep. Friends had long noticed the couple's tensions. Sarah's friend Amy had repeatedly urged her to leave George. "He's not worth it," Amy would say sternly. "But I believe he'll change," Sarah always replied. George's co-workers also noticed his emotional turmoil. "George, you don't look good lately. Do you need some time off?" a colleague asked with concern. "I'm fine, just a bit tired," George would respond dismissively. These details added layers to the story, making the tragedy seem inevitable. At dawn, sunlight streamed through the curtains. Sarah woke up with a splitting headache. Sitting up, she suddenly remembered the events of the previous night. "George!" she exclaimed, a wave of panic washing over her. She rushed downstairs and saw the suitcase still sitting quietly where she'd left it. "No, he must have gotten out by now," she reassured herself. With trembling hands, she unzipped the suitcase, finding George motionless, curled inside, his face pale. "Oh my God, George, wake up!" she screamed, tears streaming down her face. Frantic, she dialed 911, crying, "Help him! He's not breathing." Paramedics and police arrived quickly, but it was too late. George showed no signs of life. Collapsing on the floor, Sarah mumbled to herself, "It was just an accident. I didn't mean it." The police began their investigation, finding that the suitcase zipper was fully closed, leaving George unable to open it from inside. They also noticed multiple bruises and scratches on George's body. "Ms. Boone, can you explain what happened last night?" an officer asked sternly. "We were just playing a game. I was drunk, and I accidentally fell asleep," she replied quietly, her eyes hollow. When investigators examined Sarah's phone, they found 2 videos that became crucial to the case. The first video showed George trapped inside the suitcase, shouting in distress, "Sarah, I can't breathe! Let me out!" Meanwhile, Sarah stood by smirking, "This is how you always make me feel." In the second video, Sarah was seen flipping the suitcase over as George's voice grew weaker, yet she remained indifferent. Faced with this damning evidence, Sarah's defense fell apart. This true story shocked and stirred deep reflection in the community. Sarah was arrested for second-degree murder, facing the law's judgment. In court, the prosecutor presented the videos from Sarah's phone, which were pivotal in securing a conviction. The desperate pleas of George and Sarah's cold responses stunned everyone. The defendant chose to ignore the victim's cries for help, fully aware of the life-threatening danger. This constitutes intentional homicide, the prosecutor stated sternly. Sarah broke down in tears, saying, "I never meant for this to happen. I didn't know it would turn out this way." But it was too late to change anything. Sarah spent long years in prison, repeatedly revisiting that fateful night, filled with regret and remorse. "If I had just one more chance, I would never let this tragedy happen," she wrote in her diary. George's family also struggled with their grief. His 2 daughters were left fatherless, their lives overshadowed by this tragedy. This real-life story serves as a powerful reminder to cherish the people around us and handle conflicts with love and understanding, to prevent history from repeating itself.